Picture this. You're out cold in a hammock strung between two trees, deep in a forest, 3 days from the nearest road. No zipper, no tent wall, nothing between you and the dark except a thin sheet of fabric and your own unconsciousness. Somewhere out there, close enough that you'd hear it if you were awake. Something with better hearing than you, better night vision than you, and jaws that could end your night in about 4 seconds, is moving through the undergrowth, and it walks right past you. This isn't a one-off story. It's the overwhelming norm. Millions of people sleep outdoors every year in places crawling with animals that are, on paper, perfectly capable of killing a defenseless human. Wolves, bears, big cats. And overwhelmingly, nothing happens. You wake up, your gear's a little damp. Maybe a raccoon got into your food bag. That's usually the worst of it. So why? Why does an animal that can drop a full-grown elk in under a minute walk straight past a motionless, silent, completely undefended human being? This isn't luck. It isn't because predators don't see us as food. Some vague thing people say, without really meaning anything by it. There's an actual, layered answer here, built out of biology, psychology, ancient history, and a few genuinely strange discoveries scientists have only nailed down in the last couple of decades. And once you see all the pieces together, it stops looking like luck and starts looking like something closer to a treaty. Let's get into it. Start with the most basic fact, one that's almost embarrassing once you say it out loud. Predators are scared of you, not nervous, not cautious, scared in a measurable, quantifiable, repeatable way. Researchers at UC Santa Cruz ran a set of experiments in the mid-2000s where they rigged speakers near known mountain lion kill sites and played back-recorded human conversation. Casual talking, nothing aggressive. The mountain lions didn't just move off. They abandoned fresh kills mid-meal, food they'd already put in the effort to hunt down, and didn't come back. In terms of pure energy economics, that's an animal walking away from calories it desperately needs, because the discomfort of a human voice outweighed the value of the meat sitting in front of it. Similar patterns have turned up with leopards in India, tigers in Nepal, and lions across parts of East Africa. Home ranges quietly reshape themselves around zones of human activity, even when there's nothing physically stopping the animal from going in. This fear isn't something predators figure out individually. It's baked in. Humans have been the apex predator of this planet for an absurdly long time, hunting cooperatively, using tools, and systematically wiping out anything that challenged us. Cave bears, saber-toothed cats, most of the North American megafauna gone, largely at our hands, within a geological blink. Closer to the present, we spent the last few centuries actively exterminating wolves and big cats across huge swaths of their range with guns, traps, and poison. The animals that survived that pressure weren't the bold ones. Boldness got you killed. The survivors were the cautious ones, the ones who kept their distance, and they're the ones who passed their genes forward. What you're left with today, in every wolf, lion, and bear alive, is descended from generations of ancestors selected specifically for taking humans seriously. That's not a learned behavior repeated in each individual's lifetime. That's evolution quietly writing "avoid this" into the instincts of an entire branch of the animal kingdom. Then there's the information problem, which matters more than people give it credit for. A predator's hunting behavior is not a general purpose, attack anything smaller than me switch. It's an incredibly specific, tuned over millions of years recognition system, built around the exact movement patterns, silhouettes, and smells of its normal prey. A wolf's brain is wired to read the gait of a deer or an elk, to predict which direction it'll bolt, to know instinctively where the vulnerable spots are. None of that applies to you. You don't move like anything in its playbook. You don't smell like anything in its playbook either. You're a walking chemical mess of soap, synthetic fabric, sunscreen, and whatever you had for dinner, layered over a faint primate smell that isn't the specific primate smell most predators have any hunting history with. To an animal running on pattern recognition, you're an anomaly. And across the animal kingdom, The standard response to an unfamiliar anomaly isn't aggression, it's avoidance. Because investigating the unknown is expensive and getting it wrong can be fatal. That fatality risk is the piece people underrate the most, because movies have trained everyone to picture predators as fearless killing machines that'll take on anything. That's backwards. A wild predator has no vet, no antibiotics, no recovery ward, a torn ligament, a broken tooth, a deep puncture wound from a fight gone wrong. Any of these can turn into a slow death by starvation weeks later, because an injured predator that can't hunt at full capacity simply doesn't eat enough to heal. Every potential meal gets silently run through a risk calculation. How confident am I in predicting this animal's behavior? And is the payoff worth the chance of injury? A human, unpredictable, upright, statistically likely to be near other humans who'll respond to any commotion, fails that calculation badly. And when there's a familiar, low-risk deer or wild boar within easy reach nearby, which there almost always is, there's simply no reason to gamble on the strange thing in the sleeping bag. Here's a detail that rarely comes up. Your sleep isn't actually the total blackout it feels like from the inside. Human sleep runs in cycles, dipping into deep, slow-wave stages, and then surfacing repeatedly into lighter stages, where the brain is still monitoring incoming sound. Researchers studying what's sometimes called the sentinel function of sleep have found that unfamiliar or unusual noises are far more likely to break through into consciousness than familiar background sound, even while you're technically asleep. That's not an accident. Ancestors who slept too deeply to notice a predator closing in didn't get the chance to pass that trait on. The ones who startled awake at an odd snap of a twig did. Over enough generations, human sleep architecture tuned itself to stay partially on watch, which is a strange thing to sit with. You're less helpless while unconscious than it feels like. And then there's fire, maybe the single oldest trick in the human survival playbook. Fear of fire isn't something animals learn through experience. It shows up even in lab animals that have never encountered flame in their lives, which tells you it's hardwired rather than taught. Humans figured out how to control fire somewhere around 1 million years ago or more. And ever since, a burning camp has broadcast a signal into the surrounding dark that every nearby animal is built to respect without needing to think about it. It's not just warmth. It's a standing advertisement that something in this clearing controls a force every instinct tells you to avoid. Now here's the part that flips the whole conversation on its head. Because none of this means predators never attack sleeping or resting humans. They do, and pretending otherwise would be dishonest. But the documented cases follow an almost eerily consistent pattern. Something has broken the normal rules. The Tsavo man-eaters, the pair of lions that killed dozens of railway workers in Kenya in 1898, turned out on later examination to have serious dental damage that likely made hunting their usual prey painful or impossible. The Champawat tigress, blamed for several hundred deaths across Nepal and India in the early 1900s, before hunter Jim Corbett tracked her down, had 2 broken canine teeth from an earlier gunshot wound, which had pushed her toward easier, unnatural prey out of sheer necessity. Modern cases tend to follow the same script. Animals habituated to human food through tourism or careless campers. Animals pushed into starvation by habitat loss, or old, injured individuals no longer capable of catching what they're supposed to eat. Break the normal conditions, remove the fear, remove the alternative food, remove the animal's physical ability to hunt normally, and the ancient agreement stops holding. The rule isn't unbreakable, it's conditional, and the conditions almost always involve humans or circumstance breaking something first. And here's the part that goes further than most people expect. This fear we've inspired in predators isn't just a fact about individual animals avoiding individual campsites. It's rewriting entire ecosystems. Long-term research in places like Yellowstone, following the reintroduction of wolves, found that wolves themselves began avoiding areas of high human activity, even while thriving elsewhere in the park, and that shift rippled straight down the food chain. Elk browsing patterns changed. Willow and aspen growth recovered in some valleys. Beaver populations shifted with the new vegetation, and river systems slowly reshaped their banks as a result. Ecologists now describe this as a landscape of fear effect, and it isn't limited to Yellowstone. Wherever humans are consistently present, the biggest predators quietly recalibrate their movement, and every species below them in the food web recalibrates in turn. We're not just avoided. We're an invisible force reshaping which plants grow where, purely because of an inherited caution we never had to enforce directly. So next time you're lying in that hammock, or in a tent, or wrapped in a sleeping bag under open sky, and you hear something moving just beyond the firelight, that flicker of unease is old and it's earned, but it's not really about tonight. It's a signal your ancestors needed and passed down to you intact. The thing moving out there already knows what you are. It's known for longer than either of you could explain, and that's exactly why it keeps walking.